Welcome back to the channel of Truth, Trust and Transparency. Today, guys, I'm updating our numbers and we have 444 to go. Now, I'm not one of those Mercury and retrograde people, but I'm pretty sure that's a lucky number. Trying to get to 2,500 by the end of the year. I've been posting every single day. You're probably sick of hearing me say it if you've been watching all my videos or any of my videos. So if you haven't subbed, please do so. Wanted to record a very special episode today. What I wanted the episode to be about, and as this video's come out, it would have went across social media as well, that I am launching my very own property development company. A couple reasons for this. I wanted to sort of document it, but also go through some things to talk about and why I've went down this development route. Hopefully, it'll inspire and or trigger some of you guys to finally get started, to have an actual crack. One thing that I've sort of been hinting at lately over the last couple of weeks is that I was going to drop this new series. And what I'm dropping is I'm actually going to be taking you guys, my YouTube audience, behind the scenes of one of those builds, one of those developments, a 3 townhouse project. Now, the reason that I'm taking you guys behind it is pretty simple. One, I have a lot of people asking me about the process, asking me about property development, so I thought, why not do a series on it? Two, when I was, I suppose, coming up through the ranks, I always wanted to see the behind the scenes footage of each stage of the development cycle, of the construction cycle. Okay, what happens next? What happens next? What happens next? And I just never really found, I never really found anyone that did that. A lot of the videos are of the finished product. It's the well-polished, editing with nice sounds and music and that sort of stuff. Now, there's obviously a time and place for it, and that's really great, but I also want to know how it's come together, just how my brain works. And I know there's going to be 45 or 50 of you that watch this series or watch those videos that get a lot of value from it. So I thought I would do that, put it together in a series, and document that process. If for anything, and there's only, as I said, 45 or 50 you watch it, I can look back in a few years' time and look back at that project and have that well documented forever on YouTube. So I thought it'd be a good idea to do. But I want to break into a couple of the reasons why I've decided to do this. And the first is going to be skill set. Now, development, as I've said in these videos, and as I will continue to say in these videos, definitely not for everyone, right? There is this implied sense of more risk, more capital on the line, more things that can go wrong. Some people even say it's more stressful, all those sorts of things. So it's not for everyone. But one of the reasons that I have in it as picked for me, if you guys don't know, one of the degrees that I studied at university was architecture. I worked in architecture for a little bit, and then I got pulled over to the dark side in property development. Long story short, I had mates that were on, at that time, like 45 grand a year in terms of their salary coming out of architecture school, that terrible degree, and going into architecture firms as graduate architects for 7 to 10 years. Me personally, I actually moved after a few years working in architecture straight into development. They paid me more than double that I was on, that my mates were on, and I just thought it was such a greater opportunity, and it combined a little bit more of all my hobbies and that. So the skill set that I've picked up over the last sort of 10 years working in architecture and development is learning how to do this entire process. And as I say to you guys, with the course that we have for property investors and with development, is that it's most important that you have the skill set first. For property investing, for example, I always say, and there's people that have come through our course and did it, but do the course, get the skills first. If you need to outsource, fair enough, but at least have the skill set so you know that someone's not pulling the wool over your eyes and talking shit. For me, for development, it's like what you are paid to do as a job. I'm paid to do it. I get to learn on the job. For me, my first gig, I had 4 weeks of training. Then the lovely person that I worked with went off on maternity leave, and it was over to me to start running the ship. So Steep learning curve, learn on the job. I still learn in every single project in day to day. I still learn on every single project. I don't claim to be a expert that knows everything. I learn in every single project, and in this YouTube channel, as we go through these videos, I have documented those learnings and I'm sharing them with you guys in the hope that you don't have to also make the same mistakes that I have. Now, number one is skill set. Number two is I kind of look at like property investing as, in terms of property and how to make money in property, I look at it in a little bit of a sort of pyramid like this, right? And it's divvied up in probably maybe 4 or 5 different sections. Down the bottom here, you've got like shared schemes. And then you've got like sort of REITs, real estate investment trusts, and those sorts of things. Those are sort of down the bottom there. Low barrier to entry. It is 1 for 1 in terms of put $1, invest $1, you're getting 1 return on $1. Or you have those schemes where you can buy a part of a house and those sort of equity sort of plays. The next is then you've got obviously resi investing. This is where everyone spends their time, effort, and energy. Most people. Residential. After residential, I think the next step up from residential is sort of commercial. So that could be a few different ways, and that could be things where it's normal commercial. It can be things that are a little bit more mixed use or anything like that, more intricacies, childcare, those sorts of step up just from your resi. And then the pinnacle for me, or the way to make the most money, is development. Your wealthiest players in the real estate space, my friends, people that I know, my network, my industry, aren't the people that own 20, 30, 50, 80 houses. It's the people that are developing. Go back on Everything Property, listen to a couple of those stories that I've had with developers where they're making those deals for 5 million. You look at Joe Abood episode, I think it's 82. The guy made $200 million on one deal. Development, I think, is the pinnacle. So it's not an ego thing for me. It's to say, okay, well, you know, I could go in the slow lane and do this, but I have the skill set. I have the skill set to do the thing that's the fastest way to scale. Why wouldn't I do that? So for me, it has always been development. How I built and got to this stage is started with investing. Started investing in 2014, realized I needed a capital pool to build a base to get money to be able to do my own developments. That was always my goal one day. I'm sitting here today launching it. This video will go live around 6 p.m. Having launched it and being able to show you guys the pipeline of projects, whether it's on short form, Instagram and YouTube shorts, or long form YouTube videos, all those the developments and the sites that I'm doing. So for me, it was always about combining skill set with the way to make the most money within property in Australia. The reason why is because I believe ultimate leverage. I hear all the time people are absolutely obsessed with growth percentages. And it's funny because, and I'll show you why. Perfect example. Now, buyer's agents, no offense, classic way of doing this shit. Now, a buyer's agent will come out and they'll go, okay, yep, $500,000 house. And over the next call it 3 years, we've got, call it 10% growth a year or 20% of growth a year. Let's just say over 3 years, that property goes up to 800K. Most BAs will go, oh yeah, we made $300,000 in that deal, right? $300,000. For you to actually, now we can use equity. We definitely can use equity, but again, you need the borrowing capacity and you can only bring up that 800K to 80%, which means you can only bring it up to 640K. 640K if I've bought that with a 10% deposit and I have a 450K loan, 190 grand, $190,000 that I can get access to in equity, but again, so it's not truly a profit. Now, if I want to sell out this property, you got to remember, let's do the maths. You have a 500K property. You've paid a buyer's agent fee of 25 grand. You've paid stamp duty of 25 grand. You've probably paid 20 grand for everything else. So call it, you've paid 575K. Now, if I want to sell that property, I'm going to pay as well about 30 grand to sell the property. Okay, following me? So let's round that up and say 600K in costs. Selling the property for 800, which means I've made 200K, right? 100K I can keep tax-free. I've got to pay tax on the other 100 grand, which means I pay 45K in tax, which means I come out and I make 155K in 3 years, right? That's a property gone for 500 to 800. I think we can all safely assume that we would be happy if in 3 years we had a property go over to 500 to 800. Equity-wise, 190, or if we sell down, we make a little bit less because of the entry and exit costs. Now, I believe development is the ultimate leverage. Why? Well, take the same scenario. In a, I'm going to call it 1.5 year time frame, a lot of the projects that I'm working on now will have about a 12 months to 18 year time frame. In those projects, they're making anywhere between 100 to 200% of the money that I'm putting in. Putting in anywhere between 500K plus. So if we look at it there's projects that make anywhere between 500K profit to 1 million. That's in 18 months. We talked about this being 3 years. So again, and as I always talk to people is, if you do one project, right, let's just say we put 500 in, we get 500 out. Then in 18 months time, we could do 2 projects, 18 months time, and then we'd have literally, this is why it's so powerful. Let me break this down. We do one project we put 500 grand in, right? When we finish that project in 18 months, we get our 500 grand back. We get our 500 grand back that we put in, and then we get 500 grand profit. Now, obviously, if it's 125% pay down, that's after tax. We do another project, 18 months time, we get our 500 here, our 500 here, our 500 here, our 500 here. Meaning we've got over $2 million in that same 3 year time frame. That is the power of property development. Now, the best part about this is that if you're doing one project, I've got a couple projects, so if you can do a few of these projects at one time, think in 12 to 18 months just how quickly you can scale and build out and make money. There is no way that even selling a property course that I can make this sort of money in 12 to 18 months time. It's just, the numbers don't stack up. I love you guys. Got some leads coming in, got some people joining us for sure. But I don't have 500K worth, especially in 12 to 18 months. So it is the ultimate leverage piece. You could even consolidate and go 2 million in, $2 million in here on a project, $2 million out, and scale up into larger sized projects, which I also have on the run, and I will show you guys on YouTube. So for me, it is the ultimate leverage piece, especially if we're getting anywhere between 100 and 200% on the money that we invest in a project compared to resi investing. Now, resi investing, it's obviously, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's the safest way, but it is not the most effective way. Always had lunch with a member of our course today, Ben, and we were talking about this exactly thing. I said, Ben, if you knew what I knew, Why would you go back to just doing this when you can turbocharge everything? You only need to, and I said to him, perfect example, 3-year period. If you had a 4-property portfolio base and you could pull that out, and those properties are all similar size, you would have enough money to pay off the mortgages for 4 properties in 3 years' time. You're not going to be able to do that with a 7, 8, 9, 10% yielded property, or even by throwing a granny flood on. As you guys would know from my previous videos, we need not only to hold for a full decade, but likely another decade after that to be able to get the capital growth that we need to sell down and then pay off. So perfect example why I think is the ultimate leverage piece. Another thing, and probably number 4, I've got a bit of an entrepreneurial scratch. I said this in my LinkedIn post earlier today, but to me, I looked at it and said, if I quit my job paying in the 6 figures to go out and do property development, how much money can I make in 12, 18 months compared to if I just stayed in this job? Do you guys want to know what the answer was? I could make about 16 times more the amount in 18 to 24 months if I went out on my own to develop versus if I just stood around at my desk job at my 9 to 5. For me, even if shit collapses, you don't make as much money as you want to, there is so much more opportunity and more profit out there for this. Room to move in this figure than there is staying at a desk. The other thing, number 5, time. I still believe development is one of the best business models that I have ever come across. And I'll tell you why. Because I sit here in this office, I do my work, I do my development. I don't necessarily need to bring on and have these massive teams, right? You look at the top buyers agents, the top guys in Australia that do 10 million revenue in top line. Most of those guys run on 20, 30% profit margins because they've got overheads, teams, staff, and all that kind of stuff. You've got one person, then you've got teams. That's the business model, right? You need to run so much teams to make 2-3 mil. Whereas the developer, his teams are project specific. What do I mean by that? Think about it. When you're doing a development project, your architect is paid per project. You pay them a fee, boom, done. My landscape architect, my engineers, all my people in my consultant team are paid to go out there and do the job per project. That is calculated in the costs before I make the return. I don't need to have 20, 50, 100 people on my books to make the same or way more money than the people that have these larger teams, because I pay them the builder is paid per job, per project. That's the cost. I make the profit after I've paid back him. I don't need to maintain that team. So for me, and when you look at it, right, there's a couple of months working hard. There may be a month or 2 months to find a site. Then we're looking at anywhere between 1 to 2 months to put together that documentation. Even then, it's just coordination with the architect, with the engineers, with everyone putting it together. Then it might spend 2, 3, 6, 8 months in council. I'm not doing too much day to day. I might follow up with my architect, or I might follow up with council once a week or once a fortnight if I don't want to pester them. 1 email per week or per fortnight. I don't necessarily, in that time, those 4 to 6 months, that project is under assessment, I'm not doing much work. I don't need to be doing much work on it. The project team has finished, waiting for it to come out, and then we're going to give it to the builder to build. That means that it gives me time to go out there and do crazy shit on YouTube when I say, oh, I'm going to post every single day for the next 170 days straight, which is what I've done this year. I've got that time. I've got the time in my day to run the podcast. I've got my time in the day to meet people for lunch, to go and network, to be able to go out and do whatever I want. And I don't know if there's another business model out there that gives you not only that flexibility, but also, if you do it right, that reward it financially at the end of a project. So for me, it was a skill set that I already had developed, got paid to do it as a job, learn on the trade, learn and made my mistakes with other people's money, and then started to get quite decent at it. Secondly, it is, in my opinion, the pinnacle of property and how to make money through property in Australia. 3, it is the ultimate leverage key where you can leverage a lot of your money into getting a very good result. 4, it's a no-brainer. And to me, I'm not the type of guy that will sit still or sit in a dead-end job that has terrible, toxic culture for a decade and just dissolve myself as a human being. I would rather go out there, scratch that entrepreneurial bone and give it a crack, because the worst thing that can happen is I come back and I find another developer to go to work for and say, hey, this is what I've done. I've given it a crack. I know firsthand what it's about, blah, 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 X, Y, Z. This is what I've done. This is what I'm about to do. This is my real life work experience. That's the worst case. Perfect. And then lastly is the time and effort. So the time it takes to put these projects together, and I'll be documenting that. I've got a series that will start and show you guys behind the scenes of each and every step of the construction, because I know there's a lot of you guys that have been messaging me, that have been asking me about it, and I'm happy to share it with you. So stay tuned and get ready. That is why, my friends, I've launched my own property development company. Questions, thoughts, queries in the comments, any value from this, would appreciate it. You helping me get this down to 0 before the end of the year. And as always, I'll see you guys tomorrow.